Assalamu alaikum, my beloved brothers and sisters. Every one of us has experienced moments when life did not go according to plan. We prayed for something and it never happened. We worked hard for an opportunity and the door remained closed. We hoped for a particular outcome only to watch things unfold in a completely different direction. In those moments, it is easy to become frustrated. It is easy to question why things are happening the way they are. Sometimes we even wonder whether Allah has forgotten about us. Yet the truth is that Allah never forgets His servants. Not for a single moment. What makes life difficult is that we can only see a small part of the picture. We see today, but Allah sees tomorrow. We see the opportunity we lost, but Allah sees the danger we were protected from. We see the prayer that appears unanswered, but Allah sees the blessing that is still on its way. There are countless things happening behind the scenes that we cannot understand. Yet every one of them is under the control of the most merciful. Think about the times in your life when something did not happen the way you wanted, only to realize later that it was actually for the best. Perhaps a door closed, but another one opened. Perhaps a delay taught you patience. Perhaps a hardship brought you closer to Allah than comfort ever could. Looking back, you can see the wisdom that was hidden from you at the time. The challenge is learning to trust Allah, even before that wisdom becomes visible. Today, many people are carrying worries that are weighing heavily on their hearts. They are anxious about their future, their families, their finances, their health, or their dreams. They are trying to control things that were never meant to be in their control. Yet there is a beautiful reminder that every believer needs to hear. Allah's plan is better than your plan. His wisdom is greater than your understanding. His timing is more perfect than your timing. And when you truly believe that, your heart begins to find a peace that no worldly solution can ever provide. One of the most comforting truths a believer can hold on to is that Allah's plan is always based on perfect wisdom, even when we cannot understand it. Human beings naturally want certainty. We want to know what will happen tomorrow. We want our plans to succeed. We want our efforts to produce immediate results. We want life to unfold according to our expectations. Yet life rarely works that way. There are moments when our carefully designed plans fall apart. There are times when opportunities disappear. There are occasions when prayers seem delayed and doors remain closed despite our best efforts. In those moments, the heart is tested. Will we trust our limited understanding, or will we trust the wisdom of Allah? The reality is that our knowledge is extremely limited. We see only what is in front of us. We judge situations based on appearances. We make decisions according to the information available to us at a particular moment. Allah, however, sees everything. He knows the past, the present, and the future. He knows what is hidden and what is apparent. He knows the consequences of every path long before we even begin walking down it. Imagine a small child sitting in a car with their parent. The child may become upset because the parent chooses a different route than expected. The child may think the parent is making a mistake, but the parent can see things the child cannot see. The parent knows about traffic ahead, road closures, and safer alternatives. The child judges based on limited knowledge, while the parent acts based on greater understanding. In a much greater way, our relationship with Allah reflects this reality. We often become upset when events do not unfold according to our plans because we cannot see what Allah sees. There are people who pray for a specific job and become disappointed when they are rejected. They spend weeks questioning why Allah did not answer their prayer. Years later, they may discover that the rejection protected them from a harmful environment or directed them toward a better opportunity. At the time, they viewed the rejection as a loss. Later, they realize it was a blessing in disguise. Others may pray for a particular relationship to work out. They invest their emotions, their hopes, and their dreams into that relationship. When it ends, they feel devastated. They wonder why Allah allowed it to happen. Yet with time, they may come to understand that Allah was protecting them from pain they could not foresee. What seemed like heartbreak eventually becomes a source of gratitude. One of the challenges of faith is learning to trust Allah before the wisdom becomes visible. It is easy to trust when everything makes sense. It is easy to have confidence when the outcome is favorable. True faith appears when circumstances are confusing. True faith appears when answers are delayed. True faith appears when life takes an unexpected turn and we continue believing that Allah knows what is best. The Quran repeatedly reminds believers that they may dislike something that is actually good for them and love something that is actually harmful for them. This verse captures a reality that every person experiences. Human beings are emotional creatures. Our desires often influence our judgment. We become attached to specific outcomes and convince ourselves that they are essential for our happiness. Yet Allah knows whether those outcomes will truly benefit us. Sometimes Allah grants exactly what we ask for because it is good for us. Sometimes He delays it because the timing is not right. Sometimes He gives us something completely different because it is better. And sometimes He withholds what we desire because it would ultimately harm us. Each of these outcomes is rooted in divine wisdom. Consider the story of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. If we focus only on individual events, much of his life appears filled with hardship. He was separated from his beloved father. He was thrown into a well by his own brothers. He was sold into slavery. He was falsely accused and imprisoned. At various points, it may have seemed as though everything was going wrong. Yet every difficulty was part of a larger plan. Every setback was preparing him for a future role that he could not yet see. What appeared to be misfortune was actually divine preparation. Many believers experience similar situations in their own lives. They encounter obstacles that make no sense at the time. They face disappointments that leave them questioning their future. Yet Allah may be using those very experiences to shape their character, strengthen their faith, and prepare them for blessings that are still ahead. Patience becomes easier when we remember this reality. Patience does not mean pretending that difficulties do not hurt. It does not mean ignoring our emotions. Islam acknowledges human feelings. The prophets themselves experienced sadness, fear, and disappointment. What distinguished them was their trust in Allah despite those emotions. They understood that temporary confusion does not mean the absence of divine wisdom. Worry often grows when people try to carry burdens that belong to Allah. They become consumed by questions about the future. They spend countless hours imagining worst-case scenarios. They attempt to control outcomes that are beyond their ability to control. This creates anxiety, because human beings were never designed to manage every aspect of life. We were created to make effort while trusting Allah with the results. Trusting Allah does not mean becoming passive. It does not mean abandoning responsibility. A believer still works hard, plans carefully, and strives for success. The difference is that they recognize the limits of their control. They understand that effort belongs to them while outcomes belong to Allah. This understanding creates balance. It allows a person to pursue their goals without becoming emotionally destroyed when things do not go according to plan. One of the most beautiful aspects of trusting Allah's wisdom is the peace it brings to the heart. When a believer truly accepts that Allah knows what they do not know, they stop feeling the need to have all the answers. They stop demanding immediate explanations for every difficulty. They begin to understand that some wisdom becomes clear only with time, while other wisdom may remain hidden until the hereafter. There are countless stories of people who later thanked Allah for things they once begged Him to change. At the time, they could not understand why certain doors closed. They could not understand why certain prayers seemed delayed. Yet when they looked back years later, they realized that Allah had been guiding them all along. What felt like rejection was actually redirection. What felt like loss was actually protection. What felt like delay was actually preparation. Every believer will face moments when Allah's wisdom is not immediately apparent. Those moments are opportunities to strengthen faith and deepen trust. They are reminders that our perspective is limited while Allah's knowledge is perfect. The believer who embraces this truth learns to navigate life with greater patience, greater confidence, and greater peace, knowing that even when they cannot see the full picture, the one who controls every detail never makes mistakes. One of the most difficult things for people to accept is that delays, setbacks, and closed doors are often forms of Allah's protection and preparation. When something we desperately want does not happen, our first reaction is usually disappointment. We feel frustrated, confused, and sometimes even heartbroken. We begin asking questions. Why did this happen? Why was I denied this opportunity? Why did Allah allow this difficulty to enter my life? These questions are natural because human beings are emotional. We become attached to our plans, our dreams, and our expectations. When reality unfolds differently, it can be painful. Yet faith teaches us to look beyond the surface and trust that Allah's wisdom is at work even when we cannot immediately see it. Most people judge situations based on what they feel in the present moment. If something brings happiness, they consider it good. If something causes pain, they consider it bad. However, life is not always that simple. There are blessings that arrive disguised as hardships and hardships that protect us from even greater difficulties. What appears to be a setback today may become one of the greatest blessings of our lives tomorrow. Think about how often people become devastated after losing an opportunity. Perhaps they applied for a job they really wanted. They prepared carefully, prayed sincerely, and imagined how wonderful their future would be if they were accepted. Then the rejection arrives. Their heart sinks. They feel as though all their efforts were wasted. Yet months or years later, they may discover that the workplace was toxic, unstable, or would have taken them away from important opportunities elsewhere. What initially seemed like a loss eventually reveals itself as protection. The same principle applies to many areas of life. A person may desperately want a particular relationship to work out. They may pray constantly for it and imagine a future built around it. When that relationship ends, they feel crushed. They wonder why Allah allowed it to happen. But as time passes, they may come to realize that Allah saved them from pain, incompatibility, or difficulties they could not see at the time. The heart that once cried over the closed door later thanks Allah for keeping it shut. One of the reasons people struggle with setbacks is because they focus only on what they are losing, rather than what Allah may be protecting them from. Human beings can only see a small part of reality. We see what is directly in front of us. We see immediate consequences. Allah sees everything. He sees dangers we cannot detect. He sees outcomes we cannot predict. He sees paths that lead to harm long before we ever take the first step. Imagine walking through a dark forest while someone watches from high above. You may be moving toward a path that looks smooth and attractive. From your perspective, it appears to be the best choice. Yet the person above can see that the path leads to danger. They redirect you toward a different route. At first, you may feel frustrated because the alternative path seems longer or more difficult. What you do not realize is that you have been guided away from harm. This is often how Allah's protection works in our lives. Many of the greatest blessings arrive only after periods of waiting. Yet people naturally dislike waiting. We live in a world that encourages immediate results. We want instant answers, instant success, and instant solutions. When things take longer than expected, impatience begins to grow. We start wondering whether our efforts are worthwhile. We question whether our prayers are being heard. The stories of the prophets teach us a different perspective. Their lives were filled with waiting. Prophet Nuh alayhi salam spent centuries calling people to Allah. Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam waited many years before being blessed with children. Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam endured a long separation from his beloved son. Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam spent years moving through one hardship after another before eventually reaching a position of honor and leadership. Their stories remind us that delays do not mean abandonment. Delays often mean preparation. Preparation is something many people overlook. Everyone wants the blessing, but not everyone appreciates the process required to receive it. Sometimes Allah delays a blessing because He is preparing us for it. A person may ask for success, but their character still needs development. A person may ask for leadership, but they need more patience and wisdom first. A person may ask for influence, but they need greater humility before they can handle it responsibly. Consider a farmer planting seeds in a field. After placing the seeds into the soil, the farmer does not expect a harvest the next morning. Growth takes time. Roots must develop beneath the surface before anything becomes visible above it. To someone unfamiliar with farming, it may appear that nothing is happening. Yet beneath the soil, important work is taking place. In many ways, Allah's preparation in our lives works similarly. There are seasons when we feel stuck or delayed, but unseen growth is occurring within us. Hardships often become the tools through which Allah shapes our character. Difficult experiences teach lessons that comfort never could. Patience is developed through waiting. Strength is developed through challenges. Gratitude is deepened by hardship. Trust in Allah becomes stronger when circumstances force us to rely on Him. These qualities are precious because they remain with us long after specific difficulties have passed. Many people can look back on their lives and identify moments that once seemed disastrous, but later proved beneficial. At the time, they could not understand what Allah was doing. They felt confused and disappointed. Yet when they look back years later, they see how each setback redirected them towards something better. They recognize how certain losses protected them. They understand how periods of waiting prepared them for blessings they were not yet ready to receive. This does not mean that setbacks are easy. Islam does not ask believers to pretend that pain does not exist. Feeling sadness after disappointment is natural. Even the prophets experienced sorrow. The difference is that believers learn to balance their emotions with trust. They allow themselves to feel hurt, while continuing to believe that Allah's wisdom is greater than their understanding. One of the most beautiful aspects of faith is knowing that nothing happens randomly. Every closed door has a purpose. Every delay has a purpose. Every setback has a purpose. Even when that purpose remains hidden, the believer trusts that Allah is working for their benefit. This trust transforms the way a person views life's challenges. Instead of seeing every obstacle as evidence that something is wrong, they begin to see obstacles as opportunities for growth, protection, and preparation. As time passes, many believers discover that the things they once begged Allah to give them were not what they truly needed. They also discover that the things Allah withheld were often the very things that would have harmed them. The wisdom becomes clear only after the journey unfolds. Until then, faith requires patience, trust, and the belief that Allah's plan is always better than anything we could design for ourselves. True peace comes when we trust Allah completely and surrender our worries to Him. This sounds simple when we hear it, but living by it every day can be one of the greatest challenges a believer faces. Human beings naturally worry. We worry about our future, our finances, our health, our families, and the things we care about most. Sometimes we lie awake at night thinking about problems that have not even happened yet. We replay conversations in our minds, imagine worst-case scenarios, and burden ourselves with fears that only Allah knows the outcome of. In those moments, we often forget a powerful truth. Allah is already taking care of what we are worrying about. One of the biggest reasons people struggle with anxiety is because they want control over everything. They want to know exactly how events will unfold. They want certainty about tomorrow. They want guarantees that everything will work out according to their plans. But Allah never promised us complete knowledge of the future. Instead, He promised His guidance, His mercy, and His presence through every challenge we face. The believer learns that peace does not come from knowing every detail of what lies ahead. Peace comes from knowing who is in control of what lies ahead. When we look at the lives of the prophets, we find people who faced enormous difficulties, yet they remained connected to Allah. Their situations were often far more challenging than anything most of us will experience. But they found comfort through trust in their Creator. When Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam was thrown into the fire, he trusted Allah. When Prophet Musa alayhi salam stood before the sea with Pharaoh's army approaching, he trusted Allah. When Prophet Yunus alayhi salam found himself in the darkness of the whale, he trusted Allah. Their circumstances did not appear easy, but their hearts were attached to the one who controls all circumstances. Many people assume that trusting Allah means life will become free of problems. In reality, trust in Allah does not remove every hardship. Instead, it changes the way we carry those hardships. Two people can experience the same challenge, yet react completely differently. One person becomes overwhelmed with fear and despair. The other remains hopeful and patient because they believe Allah is with them. The difference is not always found in the difficulty itself. The difference is often found in the level of trust they place in Allah. Think about a child holding the hand of a loving parent while walking through a crowded place. The child may not know where they are going. They may not understand the route being taken. They may not even see the destination. Yet they feel safe because they trust the person guiding them. In a similar way, believers find comfort not because they know every answer, but because they trust the one who does. One of the beautiful things about trusting Allah is that it frees a person from carrying unnecessary burdens. There are many things in life that are beyond our control. We cannot control other people's actions. We cannot control every event that happens around us. We cannot control the future. Yet many people spend years exhausting themselves trying to control things that were never meant to be in their hands. This creates stress, frustration, and disappointment. Islam teaches a balanced approach. We are encouraged to make effort, plan responsibly, and do our best. At the same time, we are taught to leave the outcome to Allah. This balance is incredibly important. Without effort, a person becomes careless. Without trust, a person becomes anxious. The believer combines both. They work hard while recognizing that success ultimately comes from Allah. Sometimes Allah answers our prayers exactly the way we hope. Sometimes He gives us something different. Sometimes He delays the answer because the timing is not right. During those moments, trust becomes essential. It is easy to trust Allah when everything is going well. It is much harder when life becomes uncertain. Yet it is during those uncertain moments that trust grows the most. There are people who look back on difficult periods of their lives and realize those moments brought them closer to Allah than times of comfort ever did. The hardship forced them to pray more sincerely. The uncertainty pushed them to rely on Allah more deeply. The struggle taught them lessons they would never have learned otherwise. What they initially viewed as a problem eventually became a source of spiritual growth. Worry often comes from focusing too much on what might happen and too little on the power of Allah. We imagine obstacles, but we forget the one who can remove obstacles. We think about closed doors, but we forget the one who opens doors. We focus on our weaknesses, but we forget the limitless strength of Allah. When the heart becomes connected to Allah, perspective begins to change. Problems may still exist, but they no longer appear as overwhelming because the believer remembers who is in control. Trusting Allah also means accepting that some questions may remain unanswered. There will be moments when we do not understand why certain things happened. We may not immediately see the wisdom behind a delay, a loss, or a hardship. Yet faith teaches us that understanding is not always required for trust. Just because we cannot see the wisdom does not mean the wisdom is absent. Many of the greatest blessings in life arrive unexpectedly. People often spend years pursuing one path only to discover that Allah had something entirely different planned for them. Looking back, they realize that every delay, every disappointment, and every redirection played a role in bringing them to where they needed to be. The path did not make sense at the time, but it makes sense when viewed through the lens of Allah's wisdom. As believers, we must constantly remind ourselves that Allah is more merciful to us than we are to ourselves. He knows our fears. He knows our struggles. He knows the worries we keep hidden from everyone else. He hears every prayer. sees every tear and understands every burden. Nothing escapes his knowledge. Nothing is beyond his power. So when worry begins to take over your heart, remember that your future is not in the hands of chance. It is in the hands of Allah. When plans fall apart, remember that Allah's plan remains perfect. When answers seem delayed, remember that Allah's timing is always precise. Continue making dua, continue striving, continue trusting, and continue moving forward with hope. The believer's journey is not about having all the answers. It is about having faith in the one who does. If this reminder benefited you, please subscribe to my channel. Share this message with others and continue seeking closeness to Allah through faith, patience, and trust in His perfect plan.